Hey, Kirsten, when you have a moment, let me know.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
We are on YouTube and we are live with the webinar, and I'm getting eScribe up and running. We should be ready to go at 12.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Other than the one I just did?
Of
Um,
course.
Thinking through procedurally, I think what I'd like to do is once I convene the meeting and get going and we take up suspend the rules, when I'm going to hand the chairing over to Gwen while I do the item, since I'm the sponsor of the item, and it'll be a little cleaner than trying to chair and be the item sponsor.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Hello, Amber. Hello, John.
Hello.
I think you're muted. But if you were going to say something about the sunny, warm temperatures in Orlando, you can just stay muted.
That was such a kick.
Glad to hear it.
I'm sending my wife pictures of, down there. And then she's sending me pictures of 1.5 feet of snow on our deck. And then telling me the joys of shoveling.
Yes.
Yeah, it was quite the contrast.
Makes you appreciate it more, I think.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, I found it, I just thought it was so odd that it was as cold as it was here. Single digits below. Yeah.
That used to be more normal, actually. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine that's in Dallas, and that's not good.
Yeah, they're having a time down there.
Yeah. She's out of juice. There's no electricity.
Yeah.
Hey, Gwen.
Hi, John. Good to see you back.
Yeah, it's real good to be back here. It's all white.
Very white. Although it's melting. It's actually, we're warming up quite a bit.
Oh,
So.
Yeah, I'm thankful. Believe me.
The trick is to get that snow shoveling done early in the morning while the snow is still light. Don't put it off because it just gets heavy then.
Yeah, I'll have to remind Colleen to do that.
I've been trying to convince my teenagers of that fact.
Oh yeah, I did those. That didn't work either. Yeah.
Yeah, I did some joint shoveling with our daughter, and it was entertaining.
Joint shoveling sounds good.
Yeah. Well, we've got barely a quorum. That's a start.
Yeah, I bet there's some more coming.
I hope so.
Were you guys just talking about shoveling?
Yes.
A couple of years ago, we bought a golf cart off of Craigslist and we put a snowplow on it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we
Nice.
use our golf cart to shovel our driveway.
Does it work pretty well?
It works really well.
Oh, I might ask for pictures. That sounds enticing.
And it makes it fun too.
Yeah, yeah. As a corner lot owner, yeah.
Now, Rex has a neighbor down the street that he shovels his walk, so he has to get up early and do it, which is all good. But the key is he just has to, in order to get there, he's got to go through all of our sidewalk. So he puts a shovel down. Like, we get some freebies out of him because he has to get from our house down to the 4 houses down. He kind of
Right.
just does the block. He's like,
Oh yeah.
He's our snowplow. Rex the snowplow, we'll call him.
Nice.
Hey, Kirsten, I think we're ready to go, right?
Yep, all ready.
Would you mind putting up the slides for meeting and participation?
I will.
So good afternoon, everyone. I will call Committee of the Whole to order for today, Wednesday, February 17th. We've put up the slides for accessing our agenda. We continue to meet virtually, and the second slide that will come up here is regarding public comment and participation. If you're participating in the webinar, you can raise or lower your hand. If you're on a cell phone, there's a way to Zoom click more to raise or lower your hand. And if you dial in on a landline, you can use *9 to do raise or lower your hand to provide comment. And then we always have, as usual, our council voicemail that sends a digitized version to all council members at 406-552-6012, as well as the council email that goes to all council members, council@ci.missoula.mt.us. Thanks for that. We've got an hour today. Our first item is roll. And would you mind calling that out, Kirsten?
Yeah, not at all. Anderson,
Not seeing her on yet.
Becerra.
I'm not seeing her on either yet.
I see that John Contos is here. Heather Hart.
No, Heather.
Jordan Hess. I see Jordan.
Here.
Gwen Jones is here. I saw her. I saw Julie Merritt.
Here.
Jesse Ramos.
Present.
Great. Amber Sherrill. I saw Amber. Sandra Fasica.
Present.
Brian Von Lossberg is here. Heidi West.
Not seeing Heidi. I do see Mirta has joined, but doesn't have her video. There she is. So Mirta's here.
Mirta's here.
Yeah.
It looks like we have Anderson absent, Harp absent, and West absent.
And I'm guessing that they may join. There's Heather joining us, and I'm guessing we'll see the others soon too. Heather's connecting to audio right now. We have minutes to approve from February 3rd. Are there any objections to approving those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved. And I will take public comment on any non-agenda items. And if anyone, I see one attendee, Laval. Actually, I think Laval's for our next item. So there's no public comment. We will move into our two agenda items. So the first item requires that we suspend the rules to take it up. And I just want to provide context on that. The item was referred last week per our normal process and deadline, but we didn't have a council meeting on Monday, and it wasn't referred 2 weeks ago. So it wasn't a last second referral in the sense that it just happened today or something. It meets our normal process, with the exception of we didn't have a council meeting on Monday night. Mr. Hess.
Given my enthusiasm for parliamentary minutia, I would make the motion to suspend the rules.
Okay, so Jordan's motion to suspend the rules is in order. It's a non-debatable motion, and all this motion does is allow us to take up this item, and it requires 2/3 of those of us participating in the meeting to approve it. There's no public, again, to provide public comment. Are there any questions anyone has about what we're doing? Okay, so why don't we take a roll call vote? Oh, John, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what are we doing?
So this will just allow us, voting yes on this just allows us to take up the next item, which is a proposal to establish a subcommittee for interviews for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So this is not approval of that motion, it's just approving us talking about it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. So Kirsten, let's go ahead and have a roll call vote on the motion to suspend the rules.
I did get that Heidi West and Mirta Becerra and Heather Harp joined the meeting. Did Stacy Anderson join the meeting?
Not seeing Stacy.
Okay, great. Then we're ready to take the vote. Okay, Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes,
Harp.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Besika,
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
We have 11 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, so thanks everyone. I appreciate that. That allows us to take up the item on the agenda. And in order to do this, to facilitate this, I'm going to ask Council VP Gwen Jones to take over facilitating the meeting as the chair. Since I'm the sponsor of this, I felt it would run a little smoother if she chaired while I actually presented the items. So Ms. Jones, is that okay with you?
That's fine with me. I would be happy to chair.
Okay. And with your permission, I'll go ahead and introduce the item.
Please do.
So what you have before you is a motion to establish a subcommittee of our body of council to conduct the interviews, review the applications for the Affordable Housing Trust, the Affordable Housing Citizen Oversight Committee. And my apologies, I lined this out, I think, better in the referral than I'm starting to describe here. So the item at hand is with adoption of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, one of the things that we need to constitute is the Affordable Housing Citizen Oversight Committee. And per that ordinance, council has some appointments to make of some voting members as well as an alternate. The county commissioners will be selecting one member, and then the mayor also has some appointments to this board as well. The application period for serving on that committee just closed. I think it was last week, and I want to acknowledge Emily Harris Shears. She's in the meeting if we have any questions for her. Emily was hired by the city. I don't remember the start date, but she's done great work at being the administrator for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I've worked closely with her in consultation with her to get us to this point where we're getting ready now to make these appointments. And so there was a great process to solicit applications for this. We saw a lot of interest from the community. I'm just had it up before me. I think we have 43 applications for the Affordable Housing Oversight Committee. Emily's been doing some review of those, and we'll be doing some staff work to, basically get all the information together for those applications. I think that it is in the interest of doing those interviews well in order to get the best functioning committee that we can get. I don't see that being a process where all 12 of us on council interview all 43 applicants, as we have typically done with a lot of interviews for boards and stuff. It's a sizable number of people. Emily's done some great work estimating timeframes, working on questions for an interview subcommittee to use. But even allotting time, for those interviews and review of applications, we're talking about a few weeks at minimum of work on this. And so in consultation with her and some other colleagues and thinking through what Jordan had set up for land use and planning when we kind of piloted an interview subcommittee, I'd like to propose essentially the following. So I would like to establish a subcommittee, which is consistent with our rules, and I spell all this out in the referral, establish a subcommittee of the committee of the whole to work as a interview and appointment subcommittee. That group will conduct the interviews. I'm going to propose it to be 3 people, and I'm going to get to that specifically here in a moment. But that group will work with Emily. There's also been some interest with one of the county commissioners participating for efficiency in those interviews as well. So I see it being a smaller group of 4 elected officials. The council members I'm going to propose will do those interviews, review the applications, and then bring back a recommendation to this body, the committee of the whole, and essentially the full council for us to approve. So there'll be an opportunity for all of us to ask questions and glean some more information from the process. But in the interest of an interview process that I think is more welcoming and accessible to folks who express an interest, I'd like to establish this subcommittee. So I have discussed this with a few people, and I'd like to recommend that the following 3 people serve in that capacity, and then I'm happy to take questions about it and comments, and I'll conclude this with a motion to this effect. But I've reached out to my council vice president, Gwen, to serve on it. The council president has a role in either serving on the oversight committee or appointing someone. I have some plans in that regard. And so I think it's great to spread this out. I don't plan to participate. I'm not recommending that I participate on the subcommittee, but I'd like someone from council leadership to do that. So Gwen has agreed in principle that she'd be open to this. I've discussed this with Julie Merritt, and I have appreciated Julie's participation in interviews and many other aspects of items that we take up on council. And I think Julie has indicated that she'd be willing to serve on this and is very interested in it. And I've particularly appreciated her interest around housing topics in a general nature. And then lastly, I have discussed it with Mirta. Mirta, as we all know, has a planning background. She also has been very involved both in council public meetings as well as other discussions in equity issues, for instance, with the public safety and systemic racism committee work and the Learn Project and such. And so, yeah, so my proposal after discussing with folks is to have Gwen, Julie, and Mirta serve as that subcommittee to conduct the interviews, review the applications, and then bring us back a slate of appointments that we would vote on as a body for appointment to the Citizen Oversight Committee. Any questions anyone has?
We have a question from Ms. Cheryl.
Thanks. So 43 applicants, will you just remind us for the record how many appointments the council has, how many the county commissioners have, and then there's a mayoral appointment as well. And just with regard to the plan, I like that. I kind of like that plan. I like, 4 people. I think it's good to, we did that with the food and ag, what was the name, Heidi, the board we put together when we did interviews. But anyway, we did the interviews with the county commissioners and the city council for the, forgetting the name of it, the food and agricultural. Heidi's laughing. So
the local food policy board.
Thank you. That's it. I appreciate that. So anyway, I like that. I think we had 4 people in that, and that seems like that it made it kind of intimate. I mean, having done a lot of interviews for different commissions, and it was really cumbersome being all 12 of us. So I think that number feels good, and I like the idea of coordinating. And then if you'll answer the question about the appointments, that'd be great.
Yeah, and let's Emily, I'm going to ask you maybe to help me here. So council, if I'm remembering this right, and I think it's in referral, council has 3 voting member appointments and then 1 alternate appointment. The county commissioners are appointing 1 voting member to the group. And I want to be clear, my proposal for the 4, I just know that the commissioners are interested in doing this simultaneously to, I think, most efficient use of like staff time work, as well as and first and foremost, the interviewees. And so the county commissioner participating will be participating, if they choose to do that, just for recommendations back, to that body. They're not making a recommendation to the council members. It's just that they'll get to work together. And then the mayor, is it 3 appointments and 1 non-voting?
The mayor is appointing 2.
2.
Voting members and one alternate.
Right. And Emily, while we have you, did I leave out any details that you'd like to add to this whole process?
No, you covered it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. And let the record reflect that Ms. Anderson is present. And Mr. Ramos, you had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. I was wondering why Heather and Heidi weren't selected for this role, just kind of with their professional backgrounds. It kind of seemed like a good fit. And I certainly think that everybody that's appointed is going to do a great job. I was just kind of wondering how that decision was made.
Yeah, so it was, so I am planning to appoint Heidi in my place. So council president has the opportunity to either serve on the Citizen Oversight Committee or designate someone. And I've given that a lot of thought, and for many reasons that I think are fairly obvious to anyone who's tracked our deliberations around housing. Heidi brings a wealth of information, smarts, lived experience, interest and passion around this topic. And so it's my intention to appoint her in my role. And then with Heather, I have great appreciation for Heather's work with Habitat. Frankly, I don't want to touch on any potential conflicts that might arise in regard to that. We do have some roles to fill among the different bodies from the nonprofit sector and such. And by no means am I saying that there absolutely would be one, but Heather does great work in that space, and I think it's best for her to concentrate on that work in that space. And she still gets a role in this, like all of us do, with the slate that comes back.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That makes sense.
Ms. Harp.
Thanks, Brian. Brian, I appreciate that. And Jesse, I appreciate the question for sure. I don't know if there's going to be really any potential conflict, but I think it's just due to the nature of what we're trying to set out and trying to be as inclusive as we can and try and get all sorts of different lived experiences, if you will, from our community. I think that's the ideal tack. And in all honesty, I think, Myrta and Gwen and Julie are going to do a great job in this role. So no offense taken whatsoever.
I don't see any other questions. Brian, do you want to run the rest of the meeting, or I can conclude?
Why don't I'll go ahead, Gwen, and make the motion, and we can vote on it, and then I'll go back to chairing if that works with you. So I will make the recommended motion, which is to move City Council to establish a subcommittee of the Committee of the Whole to recommend council appointments consistent with the provisions of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Ordinance, which is Ordinance 3663, to the Affordable Housing Citizen Oversight Committee. Subcommittee shall be comprised of 3 members of council, which shall be Julie Merritt, Gwen Jones, and Myrta Becerra.
Thank you. That motion is in order, and I am calling for public comment on it. Ms. Ortega, did you want to comment on this motion? I see one attendee. But I think that person might be here for the next item, or actually land use and planning. Anyway, raise your hand, Ms. Ortega, if you want to comment on this. Back to the panelists that we have, Mr. Hess. You had comments or question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Land Use and Planning Appointment Subcommittee worked really well. It was really engaging to be in a small group doing interviews. This is going to be 15 to 20 hours of interviews plus deliberation and organization. And so I want to thank everyone who has agreed to do it. It's going to be a lot of work, and we're going to be relying on you for your expertise. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate Heather's remarks, and Heather, I appreciate all of your work in housing and your comments on this. I think that this is going to be a good team effort, and so I look forward to next steps.
Thank you. Ms. Merritt?
I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. I think that this oversight committee is going to be very important. So that it's key that we get good people on it. And I look forward to working with Myrta and Gwen and hopefully reporting back to you guys soon. Thanks.
Great. Ms. West.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wholly support this process. I think having the smaller group is a better experience, especially for the interviewees. And I think that is probably the most important part of this, is that it feels inclusive and we remove as many barriers as possible to fulfilling this role. So I think it worked really well for the local food and agriculture board process. And I look forward to seeing what this group recommends. So thank you. Thank you for being willing to do this.
Thank you. Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. I kind of had a question / comment. With Heather's background, I really do think that she would be pivotal in this role. So I was wondering if we can kind of put this up for a vote, or how we can make I guess an equal chance for all the people who are recommended for this role, kind of make it a vote to make it more fair, I guess. How would that work?
So I think there's a couple of options. You can make an amendment to the motion, but maybe prior to that, we could just, before even looking at an amendment or friendly amendment, Ms. Harp, is this something that you would have the time for, an inclination and the conflict issue? Do you want to address that first?
I would love to. Sandy, I appreciate the vote of confidence. My work at Habitat is all consuming. And if there are people willing to do this part of working with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I really do support that, so I can do some other things in the wings on this particular matter. And in all honesty, if we're going to really make a dent with affordability, it requires more than just Habitat having a voice at the table. It requires all of us participating in some capacity. And if these other four have said yes, I am so excited for them to say yes so that I don't have to. Thanks.
I rescind what I said then.
That is a, okay, got it, thanks. We'll just go forward with the motion. There is no amendment. I understand that you want to make then, Ms. Vasika and Ms. Cheryl.
I appreciate all the conversation on this. It is going to be a heavy lift with all those applications. That is going to be, sorry, there's going to be some noise behind me here, but there's going to be a lot of time put into this. I think there should be a lot of time put into this. So I appreciate Heather's comments. I appreciate everyone's comments, but yeah, I want to thank all that are willing to do it, because it is going to be a really heavy lift, having gone through some of these types of processes. So just appreciate it coming forward and moving forward.
Great, thanks. And I don't see any other hands raised. I will just briefly comment that I'm happy to serve on this. And 43 applicants is a lot. I think last Wednesday, between two different committees, we interviewed 9 people, and it was a long day. So 43 is a lot, and I think it is a better use of everyone's time to have a subcommittee to just address it structurally. And I also wanted to say I really appreciate, I know that Mr. Von Lossberg has spent a lot of hours on creating a very thoughtful approach, working with staff, Emily Harris and Montana James, to create a really good, strong, thoughtful foundation for this committee and how to go forward with these interviews. Everyone, I think, appreciates the magnitude of the issue in Missoula on housing. So a lot of thought and effort has gone into this, and we're going to do the best we can. Ms. Becerra, you had comments or questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. We're breaking ground when it comes to setting up this group, selecting people from the community to be good stewards of the funds that we have allocated to the trust fund. So I'm sure all of us will do our best and be extremely diligent with how we review all the applications and select a good representation of the community to move forward with this endeavor. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Mr. Von Lossberg.
I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for the discussion. Appreciate it. And I really wanted to note, as I did before, but I want to do so again, we're really fortunate to have Emily Harris Shears on staff administering the trust fund. She's done an incredible amount of work, hit the ground running when she was hired. She comes from some great experience, and she's done incredible work getting the application process open and closed, great applicants, and I'm indebted to her work on getting the subcommittee established. So just wanted to thank Emily.
Thanks for that, Brian. I see no other hands raised. I see no hands raised for public comment. So we will do a roll call vote on this motion.
Moment. Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Basika,
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
That is 12 ayes.
Wonderful. And that will go on the consent agenda, I believe. And back to you, Mr. Von Lossberg.
Thank you, Gwen, and thanks everyone. So we will take up the second item on our agenda, which is, I believe it's our every 2 years ward boundary adjustment. And we've got Neil Penninent. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly, Neil. Are you going to kick off, or was anyone else to start? Yeah.
I can go ahead and kick off.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. All right. So the ward redistricting process, this happens every couple of years.
Neil, your presenter view and your slideshow view are swapped.
Oh,
if you go to the display settings.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Let me try that again. Okay. Are you seeing the presentation view now?
Yep.
All right. Great. Thanks, Jordan. So every 2 years, the city looks at the ward boundaries to see if any changes need to be made. And every 10 years, we do that with new census data. In interim years, ward boundaries are adjusted based on an estimated population, which is derived from building permits, residential building permits within each one of the wards. Although new decennial census data should be coming before too long, right now we are still waiting. And so we're not going to be able to do the redistricting process for 2021 using the 2020 census data because it just won't be available in time to do that. So we're continuing to use the building permit estimation technique that has been used for the last decade since the 2010 census. Looking at building permits allows us to estimate what the population growth is going to be. And the timing is that hopefully building permits that have been drawn in 2019 and 2020, we expect that they will be occupied in most cases by January 2022 when these new wards would go into effect and representatives would be seated in those wards. So a little bit on the timeline over the last decade, these are the changes that have been made. And so we're near the end of this process. And this year, changes need to be made to wards 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And hopefully next time in 2023, we will have more building permits to add to it, but we will have more solid census data from the 2020 census. Some considerations when looking at the ward boundaries: the population has to be maintained with relative equality, which means plus or minus 3% of the ward average. Keeping ward boundaries regular and compact in shape and convenient for voters, and using natural boundaries when possible, political and census boundaries when possible, and avoiding redistricting seated representatives out of their wards. So this is a map of the current wards as they stand today. All of the representatives are symbolized with stars on the map. And these are the residential building permits from 2019 and 2020. Over these 2 years, there's been 1,013 housing units added to the city, and development has occurred throughout the city, though you might see that there's more in some places. The single dwelling units are shown with these blue dots. The duplexes are in yellow, and multi-dwellings are red circles with larger circles representing larger multi-dwelling developments. So as you can see, there's a lot more of those multi-dwelling units happening in the northern part of the city in Ward 2. And there is development throughout the city, though. There is a bit more of a cluster of single-family units that have come online in Ward 5 in the southern part of the city. And those are places where we're seeing more growth, according to the building permit estimates. But a reminder, these wards weren't completely equal. They were all within 3% the last time around. So we didn't start with all of them, right at the exact average. So our estimations from this process, we've got 36,600 housing units, an increase of 1,013 since the last time this process was conducted, and a total population of 78,376 for an addition of 2,045 people. That means the population when this process was gone through in 2019 was 76,331. So the average population per ward, according to this estimation, is 13,063, and that plus or minus 3% is 392. So in order for the wards to be in alignment, population needs to be between 12,671 and 13,455. And these are the populations as currently estimated. So wards 1 and 6 are in alignment, ward 2 and 5 are over alignment, and wards 3 and 4 are underneath. So some population needs to move into wards 3 and 4 and out of wards 2 and 5. And here's an overview of the preferred option for the changes to the wards. I can get into the specifics a little bit of each one of these changes in the next slides, but generally there are small populations shifting from Ward 4 to Ward 3, from Ward 5 to Ward 4, from Ward 6 to Ward 6 to Ward 5, and Ward 2 to Ward 6. And those are circled on the map. So the first one, Ward 3, expanding into Ward 4. So that boundary is currently the black line here along Woodworth, would move south 1 block to North Avenue until Maurice. The Ward 5 to Ward 4 boundary in the Brooks corridor area, following Eaton in the north, and then Schilling and Dorr Avenue in the center and in the south, all of those shifting from Ward 5 into Ward 4. And the Ward 6 to Ward 5, this one always confuses me for some reason, is moving some population from between Dearborn and South Avenue into Ward 5 from Ward 6. So the new boundary would be South Avenue, moving from Dearborn. And then Ward 6 expanding into what previously was Ward 2, north of Mullen area. So this one was a little bit tricky in that the census blocks are from 2010, and since then there's been a good amount of growth that has occurred in this area. So this was an area that was mostly greenfield before, and this is all one census block, this whole area here, and then there's this other area. So that was deemed to be the best way to move Ward 6 in that direction, that northwesterly direction that has been historically used over the last way that the wards were moved back in 2019. And so the changes in ward populations, estimated population shifts from each ward and into each ward, and then the new populations if these changes are made. And then the percent change from average population. So each of these are within 3%. This preferred option reflects a conservative approach where not large changes are made. So that's part of the reason we have Ward 3 still not that close to the average. It's within the 3%, but not by a whole lot. And part of the reason behind that is after the census numbers come out for the next process, we'll have more of a solid idea of where exactly the population is rather than the estimate we're using based on building permits right now. All right, and so again, this is an overview of the changes that are proposed. And like I said, these are conservative changes. We're near the end of the decadal process. It's a continuation of previous changes that were made. Ward 4 has moved west toward Ward 5 and Ward 6 historically. Ward 5 had, in a previous iteration, expanded north towards where Ward 6 is. And this last change in 2019, where Ward 6 moved north of the Clark Fork River, this is kind of a continuation of that. The only thing that's really new that hasn't occurred in the last decade is Ward 3 hasn't been changed. It hasn't needed to change recently, but any sort of other change might be a little bit trickier, moving it across the river or breaking that boundary between Ward 3 and 6 and Russell. This seemed like the most logical area in which Ward 3 would expand. So recommended action. And
great.
Yep.
Thank you, Neil. I see several questions, so I'm just going to start getting into those. Julie.
All right. Can you put the map back up of the Ward 2 to Ward 6 change? I'm just trying to get my brain wrapped around where that's at. Okay, so that doesn't go as far west as the 4,100 condominiums. It's further east than that. Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's was odd to me when we extended Ward 6 north across the river, but it's the way that we got to go. So thank you very much for all the work that you've put into this.
Sorry, I got to unmute myself. Heather, you're next.
Thanks. Neil, could you go to Ward 3, Ward 4 map proposed, please? There we go. So the white blocks are what is going to be removing from 4 into 3, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So this particular neighborhood butts right up against up the hillside. And I'm wondering if worst case that we could do is add that last block to the east of Maurice and Helena and Mansfield. I mean, it just seems like one more block of maybe 6 houses tops would just make sense. So it's all in one continuous line, if you will, just to make it a little bit easier for Ward 4 mates.
Yeah, so this block between Craighead and Woodworth, is that?
Yep, that's the one, Neil.
Yeah, so I did look at that, and this is one continuous census block here between, I don't know how to pronounce that, Sisson and Woodworth. And so it was a matter of, does this belong up here? And then we have that sticking down, or it doesn't quite follow the same block pattern as the blocks directly west of it. So my thought was if 2 blocks were going to be added, then maybe that could be an addition there. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I just didn't see a clean way to do that.
And Neil, if we were to go to Kent, how many additional households would that add in terms of numbers, or I guess number of residents? Would that get us closer to parity between Ward 3 and Ward 4?
Yeah, so I looked at that also, and that was one of the earlier iterations. But the issue, so in this scenario, the preferred scenario, we're moving 170 people from 4 into 3. And that next block down contains a few more people. So that would be 360 people moving into Ward 3, and that would move Ward 3 closer into parity. But the issue there is then Ward 4 is too low, because you'd need to take a bigger portion of population out of Ward 5 into Ward 4 to make up for that shift. So this movement of 1 block kind of follows that conservative philosophy. And yeah, so that's kind of where that came from.
Okay, and one last question. And when do we get those census numbers for 2020?
So yeah, that's a good question.
You have a crystal ball? I'll jump in and say, I think I heard a news report on this within the last couple of weeks, and I know that there was a 6-month delay tacked on, and I think it's questionable that they're going to meet that, frankly. It's going to be a bit. And if I could, let me make a suggestion, and we'll continue going through questions. What I'd like to do by the end of the meeting today is make sure we've set the public hearing for this, and then I would encourage folks to follow up. What I would prefer we did process-wise is get a public hearing. If you're particularly interested about other tweaks, I think it would be good to follow up with Neil and the administration about the exact. I don't want to do it on the fly here. I think it becomes too sort of messy of a process. And then we can ultimately, when we take final action on this, the process allows for changes via amendment. I mean, we'll just go through our standard process, but I don't want to squelch the questions or ideas that people has. I just would like to fully investigate those with folks as we go through the public hearing process, if that's okay. Did you have any other questions, Heather? I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you covered it. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Yep. Let's see, John.
Yes, I was curious as to why we need to keep some type of equal population in these zones or wards.
Neil, do you want to speak to that, or I can? It is historic practice for us to keep the boundaries, the populations balanced among the 6 different wards. And so we've done it, and I can't remember, it's not called out, like there isn't state statute that says it has to be plus or minus 3%, but we've established a precedent of doing this every 2 years for, I'm not sure how long it goes back. And what am I not saying in there that I should, either Dale or Neil?
No, I think that's my understanding of it as well, is that it's historically been done every 2 years, and that there are standards. There aren't standards as far as the state is concerned, as far as how frequently it's done, but that there are things in Montana state statute concerning practical equality, and that it doesn't spell out that exact number, but it's an interpretation that the cities had of the state statute that needs to be kept practically equal.
Yeah, and Mr. Nugent's got his hand on. Jim, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, it's the law. It's not an interpretation. It's the law by courts across the nation, but also your own city charter in the city council article 2, subsection 3 says each ward shall be established and maintained by the city council to be generally regular in shape and as equal in population as practically possible. And the whole purpose is to try and ensure one person, one vote uniformity throughout the city. But it's not merely an interpretation. It's required by the courts. It's a law.
Yeah, so my apologies. What I meant to convey is that the plus minus 3% specificity is the mechanism we have put in place to fulfill that law.
And that's based on court cases that kind of set those parameters as acceptable deviations.
Okay, thanks, Jim. John, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yep. Heidi.
Thanks. So my question is about once we do get those census results, what's our, I assume there's a limit to when and how often we can change this, especially as we're heading into elections. So I was just wondering if we have to wait all the way till next year to adjust these boundaries based on census data.
Right. So the timeline that we're following, to my understanding, is that the opening of the filing date is April 21st. So that the filing period, the words need to be set before then. And then after that, the next time it would matter for elections would be 2023. And so, we'd basically be losing this this cycle, and this will be the words for the next 2 years.
That answer your question, Heidi?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Mirta.
Thanks. I was wondering if we could take a look again at the word 6, chomping a little bit of word 2 on Clark Fork. Yeah, I just wanted to know how far north that goes. Does it go to
So Union Pacific is the street on the north end of this census block.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
Okay.
these are right.
So that would encompass the Brooklyn West apartments. Is that where the population shift happens?
I believe these are the Tollefson apartments, and the Brooklyn West would still be in Ward 2 west of here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to ask people to be thrifty with time. Gwen.
First of all, do you have a motion on the floor, Brian? Do you need
I
one?
don't.
Okay, I would like to make the motion, and then can I just give my thoughts on?
Yeah, and just to be clear, so folks, this is to set a public hearing for this on March 8th. So I just want, again, to remind folks, there's an opportunity to explore this more, but Gwen's made the motion to set the public hearing for March 8th. And go ahead, Gwen.
Great. And Neil, if you could just put up the map again that shows all 6 wards with the proposed changes. I guess when I look at this, I think we've got two things going on. We have our short-term goal of just equalizing within a 3% range the different wards so that we are as equitable as possible. But then we've got this long-term plan. We will have census data coming in, and then we'll do a holistic look at all of this. And frankly, we know that Ward 2 is going to be expanding. There's a lot of room for development there. And then Ward 5 in the southwest corner, there's also a lot of growth for lots of subdivisions that have been approved that are being phased in. So we know we're going to be growing in those areas. So I think these are conservative changes that we're making here, but laying the base for then when we make bigger changes. And what I thought was interesting, if you look at the last 10 years, after that census tract, there were hardly any changes for about 4 years. And then they started in with big changes. So we'll set ourselves up in the long run with the new census data. But for right now, I think we're just trying to be strategic. And the other thing is, people don't like it when they flip-flop back and forth with different city councilors. So I think it's better to be more conservative this time around. And then when we got the census data, make those bigger changes instead of possibly going in the wrong direction and having pulled back. So I think this is as best as we can do after 8 years of estimating population, and happy to make that motion.
Okay, so that motion's in order. Jordan, I think I inadvertently clicked your hand down, and I think this was about the spot. So I'm going to go to you.
Sure, thanks. I was actually going to highlight what Mr. Nugent highlighted about this being in statute. And I think, I mean, it's always a little awkward that this is a process that we do every 2 years. We've been through it. I mean, it's been every 2 years since I've been on council. I guess, it's in the charter, it's in state law. We have staff using objective criteria, and that's a pretty good baseline to me. I do look forward to, in a future year when we can kind of ground truth all of this with census data. But I think this is this public hearing to review this makes perfect sense to me, and I'm happy to support it.
Thanks. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to support this as well. I am curious though, and I think Jim's still on the call, since my time on council, a lot of the building looks like it's going into Ward 2. And I'm looking at this map and kind of imagining it shifting up north, and also some of the ward shifting up north and also to the west. And it got me thinking about the flip-flopping, and I don't think that block that's changing from 3 to 4 is necessarily a big deal, but I'm just curious so I guess I have two questions. Are we kind of thinking about that as we're moving wards around? Because if Ward 4, which is constrained on two sides just by mountains and open space, if that ends up needing to shift to the north in the future, are we taking that into consideration? And then I guess my question to Jim is, or anyone, I guess, but at what point do we add another ward? Is that part of, how does that work if we get to the point in development that we need a 7th ward, or maybe?
So Amber, I'll take the second one just for time. It would require a change to the charter. Our charter specifies 6 wards. So, it would require a change there. And Neil, the first question about sort of the macro shifts with development, do you want to respond to?
Yeah, I think there are some constraints as far as where wards can move in terms of following geographic boundaries that make sense. Ward 3 seems a little bit constrained by the river and then following major streets, but Ward 6 moved across the river a few years ago, and so if population keeps moving in one direction or another, then those bridges that seemed like they would never be crossed will eventually be considered, I think. So I don't know what the future holds, but I think there's a possibility for the ways that they could change that'll look a little bit different in the future.
And I'll add to that, Amber. I think the short answer to your first question is yes. Neil did give thought and consideration to sort of the trends and macro movements that are happening with this set of conservative recommendations.
Thank you. I got thrown out of the meeting a couple times. So
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to go next, Sandra.
Thanks. I just wanted to double check. The residents that will change wards, they will receive a written notice about this if it does pass the public hearing. Is that right?
That's a great question. I don't know what the notification process is.
Okay. I can figure it out in them.
Oh no. Let's see if someone does someone Neil or Dale, does someone know the answer to that? I don't know the answer to that. And if not, we will pin that and get an answer to it. It's a good question.
Okay. By next meeting's fine.
Okay. Stacy.
Thanks so much for this. So my understanding on the ward boundary changes is that we will continue to represent the wards that as they are today through the end of the year. But the election will sort of tweak it. And when the new people get sworn in January is when the boundaries will actually shift. So is my understanding of it. So there'll be maybe a tiny bit of confusion when for those, few hundred people, when they receive their ballots in November, that they will, if they've shifted wards. But these will be, if they want to run for ward or council, they will have to live in the new boundaries once we adopt those. And then all of that representation will take effect, I believe, in January when the new term is sworn in.
Mr. Nugent, you had your hand up. What did you want to respond with?
Just a clarification for the way the wards are established. The charter does say that at the time of the adoption of the charter, there'll be 6 wards. However, it also says the city council shall have the authority by ordinance to determine the number of city wards. And Montana state law gives that power to the city council as well. But it puts parameters on that the first class cities, such as the city of Missoula, may only have up to 10 wards. It can't have less than 4 and up to 10. So there is a parameter range of between 4 and 10 wards for a Montana municipality that's considered a first class city.
Thanks for that clarification. So Amber, I misspoke. Thanks for that, Jim. And Stacy, I apologize. I interrupted you. I thought it was going to be on your question, but
that's okay. Well, and it's also, a good thing to point out because, we are the second largest city in Missoula or in Montana, but say Billings only actually has 5 wards versus 6 wards. So I think there is nothing that says how big a ward, how many people in the population have to be represented. But I appreciate the fact that we try to kind of keep it within the bounds of a couple hundred folks every 2 years. It does seem sort of like a process, but I think it really highlights the growth that Missoula is experiencing, especially in Ward 2 with, annexations. It's kind of all of a sudden a big chunk of people come in, and it kind of throws off the representation, which is the need for the constant every 2-year tweaking and continue. And same thing with my ward with the Teton subdivision continuing to expand out to the very southwest. That's 1,100 potential homes once that thing is fully built out. So, and I appreciate all the work that Neil has done. I realize the census data, we've all, it seems like everyone's been talking about the census for quite some time, and with the the mishandling in the last administration of the census, with the data is being delayed. And the last, I keep in pretty close contact with the redistricting commission. We're not expecting, that block level data until September at the latest. So obviously that is well past the time in which all of these will need to be established for the upcoming elections. But it will be an interesting opportunity once we have that to really sort of look and make sure that to do some really larger boundary line changes within these wards to make sure that there's some continuity of wards and representation in neighborhoods and things like that. So thanks everyone for all the work on this, and I am supportive.
Thanks. Jim, did you have anything else to add? I didn't lower your hand. Wasn't sure. I think he does not. Okay. We are at the hour. So we have a motion on the floor. I don't see any additional hands. I'm happy to take any public comment. We have one attendee in the meeting. If you are interested in providing public comment, you can just raise your hand. I actually think that person is here for a land use matter. So not seeing any public comment. Have a motion on the floor. We will take a roll call vote to set the public hearing for March 8th.
Okay, I'm setting the public hearing. Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
Von Mossberg,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
We have 12 ayes.
All right, that passes and we'll go on the consent agenda. That was our only other item. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate all of the work on that. Thanks to everyone. We will be adjourned.